today we are talking about what could be the letter you would write to your 20-year-old self. Lynn, I'm looking at that naughty smile. What are you going to tell her?
It's not even a naughty smile. I'm just reflecting because I remember that around 2012 when it was my 44th birthday, a friend of mine gave me a book about life. And have you read that book? It's called The Four Agreements. Have you read The Four Agreements? Anyway, this book is about how we have how we are domesticated as kids.
Mhm.
To believe certain things and to follow certain rules, and how we never reflect on our lives and find our own rules for life. So what I would do with my 20-year-old self, I will tell them to read that book. I would tell my 20-year-old self to not read that book at 44, read it at 20, and to rewrite the rules for my own life.
So I've written a letter to
Of
my
an actual
20-year-old
letter.
self, an actual letter. And I think for me, like you talk about reflecting, it was, I got married when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
And this letter would be for my pre-married girl.
Mm.
So it goes like this. Dear me, I know you would probably be skeptical about what I would say, but I hope you will listen at least to some advice for the lessons I learned through my experience. Not every moment will be happy, but there will be moments of deep satisfaction and immeasurable joy, and there will be hidden wisdom everywhere. Before I share with you what I've learned, I want to tell you that you are enough and that you are loved. I am so proud of you for your courage and your appetite for life. Firstly, you are not broken. The confusion and despair you sometimes feel in your inability to find purpose behind your existence is what everyone around you feels. Befriend that feeling. I will visit you often. So
Mm.
that is my love letter to
And that's
my
beautiful.
20-year-old
So
self.
beautiful. And it almost feels like that is a letter that we should share with every 20-year-old. I also want that letter. But let me go back to mine as well, if I can just share then on mine, because we also want to get into the experiences and why we want to share what we want to share. So for me, coming back to what I read, it is about having read this book. It made a huge impact on my life, and that was actually the catalyst for deep self-reflection later on in my life at 44. So I wish I would have had that at 20. It was this increased self-esteem that I would have, a self-awareness that I would have wanted my 20-year-old to have experienced. And and this new way of living my life according to a new set of agreements for living my own life. So just to go on to that before I hand it back to you, it was about, I wish I had myself or somebody at that time telling me to become more self-aware. And self-awareness is obviously the ability to focus on yourself and how how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or don't align with your internal standards. And that's important for me because I had a lot of conflict internally about what my internal standards were because of life happening. And then I would want, because what I did when I read this book in 2012, and as I said, I was around 44, I actually studied these four agreements. And basically, the four agreements is about being true to your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And now I've added another one, trust your gut. But I'm not going to go into that because that's a whole but what I want to highlight is what I did when I got that book over that year. I actually really invested my time in studying this and starting to internalize it and making it part of my new set of how I see my life unfold. And it was interesting because you start challenging what I knew and what I grew up with. So in this book, he talks about we are domesticated to have certain standards or certain values or certain beliefs in life, but we actually never, because we adopt that and we just go with that, we never reflect on what it is that we actually want for our lives. And that's, I think, why I'm in a space right now where that has become so important. So I'll go a little bit more into that
Mhm.
because I really wanted my 20-year-old self to know that, you
Yeah,
know?
I think we come from the same generation
Yeah.
where it wasn't about ourselves.
Mm.
It was everything and everybody around us. Like you said, we are conditioned to think about everybody else around us. And for me, that was the one thing I would say is take care of yourself.
Mm.
And I reflecting realized that for nearly 3 decades of myself, 3 decades, I have not taken care of myself.
Yeah.
It was always everybody else. And remind that 20-year-old that every day is a gift, because I think I have taken my life for granted. I've taken things for granted. So for me, it's remembering that every day is a gift. And I think the one important thing for me is because I am quite intentional about what I mean. Like, as I talk to you, you must realize that I am, a little bit crazy. It's very hard for me to admit to my 20-year-old self is that you won't always get things done your way, because I've always wanted things done my way. And that's how my brain has worked. It's been engraved in my brain. Um, and to tell her that things always don't go as a planned, like, getting married at 20 years old, and 26 you're getting divorced with two children, being a single mother. Things don't go as planned. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be married,
Yes.
and but that was not part of my decision.
Absolutely.
And I think, yes, deviations happen, minor changes happen, life changes, changing things happen, but I would tell her that you have to have a plan B.
You have to have a plan B.
And what does that plan B look like? My plan B started at 40 years old. And so for 20 years I've been living my life um, around other people, other things. So yeah, so I would say to her, for 20 years, do not waste your 20 years. Look, I don't think my 20 years was wasted, but I think there were lessons that I didn't want to learn. I
Yes.
didn't need to learn.
That you didn't need to learn.
Yeah.
So interesting that you say that because, again, there's similarities between you and me because I guess it's just that era. Because I was married when I was already married when I was 20. I already had a child when I was 20. I also started my plan B or my second lease on life at the age of 38. So, but then reflecting on that, if there was one thing, and just again referring back to what I was talking about, if I could go back, or if I could write a letter now to my 20-year-old self, this married 20-year-old self that had a child 20-year-old self, I I'm thinking about how feisty I was
Mm.
in terms of, and how I could easily say things without giving it a lot of thought. And that is when I read this, I realized that that was probably one of the things that I should have done better. And if I could tell my 20-year-old self now to, to be very aware of what you're saying and who you're saying it to and when you're saying it. So, because I look at it even now, if I look at people and the things that they say, and how it's such a shame that humans often use words so thoughtlessly. And we don't understand the power of words and the hurt they can bring. So, words can be hurtful and damaging, but they can also be healing. And it's up to us to choose how to use those words. And I wish I used my words better.
Mm. On that, Lynn, I really felt that I also feel that I would have told her to be kinder to people, not only to myself but to other people. And I think I wasn't very kind, because again, you come from a generation where I don't think I saw kindness,
Yeah.
or felt kindness or witnessed kindness. So from that, it was I wish I would uh, learn forgiveness at an early age,
Oh,
because holding
absolutely.
holding grudges will hardly make your life better, and usually the only one that suffered was me.
So many things we learn later on in our lives.
I know. And others won't haul around the weight inside themselves. So for me, I was the one that suffered with all this, I don't want to forgive you, whatever. I still have, and we can talk about it some other time. I still have issues about forgiveness. Why do we need to forgive people? We have to forgive ourselves, actually, because but for me, it's really forgiving. It's not about forgiveness. It's because people know what they've done to you. But I also feel that that from that forgiveness there's a grudge, and I wish I didn't have grudges when I was younger, because that was a weight that was
Yeah.
carrying me around, which actually made me quite resentful. So yeah, so that's kind of where I would love. Look at women that are much softer and kinder, and I would like to be like that. But then life happens, and then you just no, you
Then it
know,
just kicks in,
yeah, yeah.
bang. Here I am. Okay, I've got something to ask you, but I just want to just make this last point on what I was saying, because it's not just about being kind with your words with to other people and yourself, but you also have to be using your words not to go against the values you hold to be true to you, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So often, I'm not saying we should be, I would not would have wanted my 20-year-old self to become a to be the people's pleaser that I actually was at that age.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to find the words and a way of expressing myself in such a way that I could still stay true to who I was at that time. But having said that, I've been listening to you and you keep on referring back to yourself as her
Mm-hmm.
and not when I was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any significance in that? Do you feel like you've changed that much, that this is a different person as opposed to who that person is that you're referring to as her now?
Absolutely. I am not that same girl. And there's a sense of freedom that has shaped my life.
Yeah.
And so she is in a beautiful Barbie doll house at the moment, and I like to keep her there because there was a lot of innocence about her.
Yeah.
And life has done me really hard, and
Yeah.
I'd like to keep that innocent 20-year-old girl
Mm.
that was there
You want to
just before,
preserve her.
preserve her. And I think for me it's really acknowledging,
Interesting.
yeah, so definitely somebody that has evolved and transformed, so I'm not that same girl.
Yeah.
But also uh the her me making her believe that I am my greatest ally and my own opponent, and
Mm.
that I'm my own support. So
Mm.
and I don't think when we look at our younger selves, we always think that there might be people there that are going to be there for us, and then
Oh, yes.
they do disappoint us. So for me is really about I didn't want to be compared.
Mm.
I was constantly comparing myself to other people, and I am better now.
Mm.
And yes, so she's there, and I look at her every now and again, and of course, most importantly, the tiny body that I had. So
I
like
I love how you explain that, because because it was interesting listening to that, because I think we've all changed and we have grown and all of that, but it was just interesting to hear how you refer to her,
yeah,
and it makes all the sense. So if I could just then go on to another thing that I would have wanted to tell her, my her,
you're her now.
at 20, which was another thing which I feel I really battled with, and that was the way in which I took things personally.
Mhm.
And I would like to now, because I'm in a different space with that right now. I really have, over the last, when was 2012? Where are we now? Over 10
2020,
years,
yeah.
worked on myself in terms of not taking things personally. And it's probably the most difficult thing to work on, and it's taken, but it needs constant work, and I'm not there yet. I mean, I take things personally, but I'm better at it.
Because that's also self-sabotage
Yeah,
when we
yeah, yeah,
start
yeah,
taking personally.
yeah.
I have to
So
yeah.
yeah, so for me, and again, I mean, I'm not promoting this book, but really it is a good read. So if people want to go read this
But
book,
maybe you should
I
write
hope
that
it's
book
I
about
hope
you,
you
because I think let's move on to I don't no.
anyway,
Don't,
I'm not promoting books,
yeah.
but no, because it was really,
Yeah.
it was a real instrument. I mean, it was a real catalyst for me.
Mm.
And what I've realized, once I realized that if anybody does anything or says anything about me, good or bad,
Mhm.
it's not actually about me.
Mhm. It's
It's a
them.
reflection on
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So if you tell me XYZ, let's say, I mean, people will tell you, for instance, let's go to the hair again. Oh, you should really change your hair. That gray doesn't suit you and makes you look old.
Yeah.
It's actually not about me. It's actually about their insecurities about
Yeah.
going
I
gray.
know it's like someone, commented on one of my posts the other day when I was at Bricks, and they said it's not a Bricks fashion show. And I'm like,
Yeah, but
really?
but that's
Like,
something.
before I would take that personally, like, oh my God, people are like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
looking at me and I'm not this
But
businesswoman, whatever.
exactly.
But,
But
that's,
it's an
yes.
internal
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
that person is dealing with,
Mm.
and then but
Or they just want to be mean. They're not even dealing with anything. They
yes,
just want to be cyber bullies. I
yeah.
think sometimes you also try to, justify why people do it. People are
Yeah.
sometimes just bullies.
Yes, but they bullies again because they're struggling with something within themselves.
Well,
So,
they must go
well,
get some help.
but yeah. So what I want to get to then is it's not just about what people say negatively towards you.
Yeah.
It's even when people compliment you that it shouldn't matter whether I give you a compliment or say something negative
Hmm.
or insult you. What is
But receive
important?
it. Receive the
No,
positive
no,
things.
yeah, but
Yeah.
no, but receive both.
Yeah.
Because what is important is what you believe about yourself. So whether I say to you
Yeah.
that's a pretty jacket you're wearing or not, it doesn't matter unless you believe it.
Yeah. True.
And that's when you start thinking, you know what, it doesn't really matter. And I wish my 20-year-old self had that kind of information and,
Yeah. But we are here now
about,
to inform people. And I think
yeah,
one of the things that I would tell myself is, and I would tell her, is choose the people you surround yourself
mm,
with. Because I look back at the friends that I might have kept that might have been toxic, that
yeah,
might have influenced me negatively. And I think that's the one thing, because your surroundings shape you.
mm,
And, if you if the people that are not doing justice to you in your life, you can cross them out.
yeah,
We talk about cancel culture now. Why aren't we canceling people in our younger days if they don't work out for us? And I think for me, that is one thing I would talk about is people that might have negatively influenced me in my life, which I am thinking I wanted to probably be like so much that I allowed them to take
yeah,
advantage over me. And also, um, learning is an everlasting process, and I wish that I had studied more.
mm,
I wish I had a lot more stuff that I took time out. I
mm.
had the opportunities. I didn't want to because everything else was more important. and
And you
um
wouldn't listen to
and I
nobody.
wouldn't listen to nobody, even to doing an actual training, some kind of training
Yeah,
stuff. It's like, why do I need to know? I know everything, But I mean, but I mean, if you study and you just keep evolving.
yeah,
But I started doing that again in my 40s, and I think a friend of mine got me a book for my 40th birthday, and it was Barbara Walters' book called Auditions.
mm,
And it was an amazing book about how her career started at 40. And so sometimes we can't really be hard on ourselves, but
mm.
in saying
Yeah,
that,
also
it's
ease up on
really
yourself.
so for me it was really also about never postponing things in your life, because those are red flags. And I think, they talk about procrastination. I am one of the biggest procrastinator, and then I have to do something, and I have an hour, and I had three
Yeah,
days to do it, and it's because I find, I don't, I've got time, or this or that. And again, it's don't wait until your next job, or your
yeah,
next this, or your next that, because time does pass faster than you
very
think.
fast.
So y- so if you don't learn to live in the moment, you're never going to learn to live at all. And I think for
Absolutely.
me, that is the most important thing that I've also learned, is that I procrastinated so much. And yes, I feel that I've achieved so much, but I also feel I could have achieved 1,000 times more
More
if I had not postponed things in my life,
being so
because
many
those were
times.
red flags for me.
Yeah.
And examples that I would have used is that, really, knowing that I was passionate about production, go to
Mm,
film school, go to do this. I could have done that, but
mm,
hey, I was also fortunate in that I worked at a broadcaster where I got first-hand experience. So hey, I was not lucky. I was blessed and fortunate to have had that experience, but I would have loved to have closed the gap of having that qualification. If
yes.
I, so now when I look at people at 60 and 70 that are doing their MBAs and their masters and the PhD, and I still like, I would rather just be on TikTok.
I'm definitely not studying at this age. I'm
I mean,
done.
I know, but I mean, it is who they are.
Yeah,
Everybody does, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I think
But you're right
the
about
other
that.
most precious thing that we have ignored in our years, Neil Diamond's song says, "Youth is wasted on the young,"
Yes,
is
yes, yes, yes.
our body is our main asset, and I think now you and I have
Really
realized
trying to keep it together.
we are trying to keep it together. I mean, there's this wear and tear that's happening at the moment, and I think for me is we don't ignore the red flags. It's we talk about wearing sunscreen. We talk about a lot of
That's
that.
another thing.
Yeah, not drinking enough water. And I think we um we only realize now that our body inside as well as outside, and I'm not talking about soul, I'm talking about our
Yeah.
organs inside and outside, are one of our most precious assets. And I think for me it's we just thought that we were going to be thin
Like,
forever.
and how
I
beautiful were we? Like, so skinny. I
I
mean,
know
look at my
I often
wedding.
want to
I'm
say
like,
that prayer,
wow.
that meme that goes around to say, "Dear God, if you give me that hot body again, I promise I won't, I won't
No, no,
abuse
I've
it."
got a different one. On my fridge, I've got a magnet that says, "Dear God, if you can't make me thin, please make my friends fat."
Yes, true, true, true. So of course, we talk about
Or if you can't make me skinny, please make my friends fat.
okay. And of course, I don't know about you because but I mean, worry less, play more. I don't think
Mm.
I've played much. You
No,
still
no,
not playing.
no. I mean, I haven't played because I was married with children at 20. No, I did play. We're
Yeah,
still going
you
to
did
talk about.
play.
Went through a play phase,
Okay.
of note. So I did play a lot. But the one thing that you mentioned, which I always think is like, if anything, I would probably have worn sunscreen because I'm an outdoors kind of person
Mm-hmm,
and I would do all these outdoors. But I never thought sunscreen was important. I mean,
mm-hmm,
look how I ended up with all the pigmentation that I had to
mm-hmm.
spend 10 years to get rid of.
And the
And
other
I'm not even there yet.
Yeah. And I think on that, it's if we have took care of ourselves a little bit more from a body perspective, again, um, I wish we had more access to things, because
Mm.
the access in our generation was purely for the white, blue-eyed blonde girl.
Yes.
And I remember
Yeah, it was a
having
different thing. The magazines, hey?
exactly. And I think that's another thing, where I remember I had this beautiful long black silky hair, but guess what I washed my hair with?
Mm.
Sunlight soap.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, because my mom
We
used to
actually
like
did that.
put coconut oil in my hair like every single day to make sure those plaits are tight. I had
Mm.
plaits going down here.
Exactly.
But come
But
Saturday, it would be sunlight soap. I'm like, and then you would look at this magazine and you have these shampoos. And I asked my mom later on, like, why wouldn't you buy? She was like, there was nothing for us.
yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean there was not? But it's the truth. There was nothing for us. And I think
Yeah.
those are the things that I realized that we didn't have access to.
Yes.
And it was really for the white
And it
the
wasn't
white girl,
relatable at all.
wasn't relatable to us. Oh yes, I'm so glad that even though I've overplucked my eyebrows,
Oh my word, no.
that
I
some
actually
of them.
no, I actually didn't ever get deep into that. I
No,
mean,
no,
those
no.
thin lines.
I had those thin
You
lines.
had them.
I did. I was
Mm.
overplucking eyebrows. Definitely that. What I want to thank her for is that I've always written. I have always written down. I have books and books and books and books, and I
Yes.
just keep writing things down.
Yeah.
I know my writing has even gone more untidy,
Yeah.
but I have just for me, thank her that
Mm.
writing down, journaling thoughts,
Yeah.
things, how I feel, and that for me is something that I'd like to thank her for. Is make that was what I always did from the time I was little, and I continue to do that. So that was like the one thing, um, and of course, don't care about what other people say
Yes.
about you.
Mm.
I think you and I both have battled with that over the years,
But
because
now,
but now we like, I don't give a shit
yes.
what you think
But
about
it
me.
took some work and time.
Yeah. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinions
No,
about
absolutely.
us, but I wish we knew that it didn't matter when we were young,
Yeah.
because people would assume, would say things. It was not even an assumption. They would say things like, even though you you dark, you're so pretty, and I would not understand what that is,
What
because
is
that's
how does
anything
that
where,
work?
and
Yeah.
I would take that person, I would
Even
go
if you
into a
don't.
little thing, even though you dark, you're so pretty, and I'm like, this would come from family,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I would battle with that, and now I'm like, this skin is freaking beautiful. People pay to be my color,
Mm,
and that's the kind of that's when people listen to us, it's when young women listen to us, it is taking that from us to say that you can be so confident, and you don't have to play small
mm,
to serve this world that we are here for.
mm. So, what I would like to maybe thank my younger self, the 20-year-old with the children and the husband, um, is that she was, or I was at that time, um, I wasn't, at the point where I wanted to be in terms of changing
Mhm,
my rules
mhm,
for life.
mhm,
But I was also not conforming to many. I was a bit of a rebel with a cause. I did challenge.
mhm,
I raised my family. Even at that young age, I decided how I wanted to raise my family. And they were very different, um, you know, rules that I've implemented within my family
mhm,
that didn't conform to necessarily how my parents
mhm,
raised us.
mhm,
I gave my children way more leeway in terms of being able to choose what it was that they wanted to. And I think if I didn't do that, or myself and Tony, my ex husband, if we didn't do that, I don't think we would have had like a rapper son, for
mhm,
instance,
mhm,
because
mhm.
we would have made him go and study law or something like that.
Exactly.
So I do feel I started then already, and I want to thank her for
Mm.
having the courage to do that.
I think also that she would have to learn to say no to people.
Oh, absolutely.
And for me, it's like, between 20 and 30, I wish I said no to, because again, when you are younger, you don't have the right mentors. You might have great role models, but you don't have the right mentors. And you are with me, this is about me. It's really, you are trying to build up this brand, this career, because
Mm,
you are ambitious. You want to be, you want to be known, for the for from a work perspective, from a career
mm.
perspective. So what happens is you accommodate men. You
Yes.
have that meeting that's after 9 o'clock. You have, because you're so wanting to have the next job or the next. I would, for me, it's say no.
Mm,
Because you know that accommodating men, um, because you want something, you've got to give something. And I think for me, I have had experiences of that,
mm.
and sometimes I had to give in on certain ones, and I had to work through that, because when I think about it, I want to vomit. And I'm like, how did I get myself there?
Yeah.
But again, I didn't have the right guidance, where it's like, do not, get seduced into believing that you would get the next job because of this.
Mm,
And that for me is that the one thing about saying no is about that for me,
mm.
which I have had to work through and
Yeah.
forgive myself for.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the most important things. So it goes back to trust your gut, because your
Yeah.
gut is an invisible guide into the decisions that you make. And I
And you know
should
how
have trusted
often, yeah,
my
how
gut on
often we
those
don't
things,
trust it.
because I think we often, we don't have to always push ourselves
Mm,
in a particular direction if we know it feels wrong.
mm,
And for me, it's, you can say no whenever you
mm.
want to.
I
um
think gut feeling for me has become a very strong compass.
yeah,
Is that what?
yeah.
Yeah. I really feel if even in the smallest things, I just, if it doesn't sit well with me, I just think, I just can't do this
Mm.
because and it doesn't matter what it
But I
is.
think now we're okay to able to
Mm,
understand our gut
yeah.
and honor our gut,
Yes.
and I
Honor
think
my gut.
honor that intuition.
Yeah.
um Sometimes we mess up, I guess. We,
Mm,
like, because we don't want to see it,
mm,
we kind of mess up. But we'll talk about
yeah.
that some other time. But but I think that is the most important thing. And we both spoke about this, is that your word is everything.
Mm,
is do what you say you're going to do. Tell the truth. If you have to, if you're borrowing money, pay
Pay
that
that
money
back.
back. Live up to your commitments. Your character and integrity affect everything in your life, your reputation, your professional prospects, even your relationships. I think just be a stand-up person, because I always think, I'm flawed at relationships, but I think again it had to do with maybe I was not honest enough. So in saying all of that, it's ultimately, I would tell her, is do you, but do you, um because people are so busy thinking about everything else and everybody else. You waste your energy trying to impress other people, worrying about judgments, and also, as much as your heart is going to maybe fail you sometimes, you do what's right for you, because the people that matter will always support you.
Yeah.
And of course, life is short.
Life
we
is very
we
short.
only have one shot at this game, and I've learned that experiences matter more than anything, and that integrity of relationships matter. It's not about the numbers,
Yeah.
and that ultimately I am the captain of my own ship.
You are the captain of your own ship.
Yes.
And from my side, I just want to say that life has happened and we've messed up and we've done some things good and some things bad or wrong or whatever people want to call it. And what we have done, though, is we've done the best with what we had and with what we knew how to do.
Yes. In saying that, as we wrap up, what would be your um, profound message to her?
My profound message to her would be that she needs to make her own decision about how she wants to live, and that life can change in an instant. So don't waste your time.
So mine
Yeah.
is, your success in life will be determined by your own confidence and your fortitude. There is the power of you. Take the risk and be the queen that you are.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us on Outspoken Owls. We've had a hoot and we hope you've had one too. Catch you next time.